Hey guys, Miss Jones here. We are going to, this is just a mini lesson for your next assignment on Alex, okay? So this needs to be done first. This is mini lesson 1.1J. The learning goal for this lesson is students will be able to apply the multiplicative inverse to solve for an unknown variable. So let's move on to the next slide and start practicing. Okay, so the first one that we have here says simplify your answer as much as possible, and we have the equation 3u is equal to 84. So I'm going to pull out my marker and let's start working on these. Okay, so um, what we need to do here is make sure we keep our equation balanced. And what this actually means, 3u is equal to 84, this means that u plus u plus u is equal to 84. So we need to figure out what number is it that when we repeatedly multiply or add it together 3 times, we get 84. In this case, rather than writing u plus u plus u plus u, we just write 3 groups of u. That's what 3 times u means. 3 groups of u is equal to 84. So to solve that, let's make this a little bit smaller. To solve that, we're going to divide both sides by 3. What number is that? And what we get is 3u divided by 3 leaves us with 1u. And 84 divided by 3, well, let's think about that. 3 divides into 80 at least 20 times with a remainder of 2. And 3 divides into 24 8 times, so 28. And let's check our answers to be good math students. If this is true, if u is equal to 8, then that means that 3 times 28 is equal to 84. Is that true? Well, 3 times 20 is 60, and 3 times 8 is 24. So yes, 60 plus 24 is in fact equal to 84. So therefore, this is our correct solution. Okay, let's work out this next one and solve for W. So 6 times W, or 6 groups of some number, is equal to 96. Again, this is all this is saying in an algebraic way. This is saying this. So you guys have seen these problems before. You're just looking at them from an algebraic standpoint now. Rather than having 3 times what goes in the box equals 96, in algebra we say W. Let's just call that box W so we can do more fun stuff to it, okay? So that being said, let's move this out of the way. And we're going to divide both sides by 6 to find out what number would go in that box. Well, 6w divided by 6 would give us, running out of space over there, 1w. And 96 divided by 6, well, let's see. 90 divided by 6, that would go in at least 1 time with a remainder of 3. And 36 divided by 6 is 6. So that should be 16. And I'm going to check my answer again. Okay, let me just write this. This was a check over here, and this is a check over here as well. So let's check. Is 6 times 16 equal to 96? Is that true? Well, 6 times 10 is 60, and 6 times 6 is 36. And yes, in fact, 60 plus 36 is equal to 96. That is true, and our answer is correct. So I'm going to pause the video here and give you guys a chance to do 2 on your own. Okay, and we're back on and we're looking at a different type of problem. Same concept, just rather than dealing with whole numbers, we're also going to deal with integers. Integers is just a fancy math term meaning the whole numbers and their opposites. So they're positives and they're negatives. All right, so you're going to see that not much else is different here. For the sake of space, I'm just going to rewrite this whole one all over again. Negative 32 is equal to negative 2 times u. So what number times negative 2 equals to negative 32? Well, just by looking at this is basically saying negative 32, again, is equal to negative 2 times what goes in the box, okay? So let's divide and find that out. We're going to divide both sides by the entire coefficient, okay? This is the entire coefficient. I must include the negative 2. So by doing that, a negative divided by a negative, remember we have tools to use to help us. When I have that negative divided by a negative, I get the opposite of positive, which is exactly what I want, a positive 1W. And I have to do that to both sides, of course. And a negative divided by a negative again, of course, gives me that positive. In this case, I'm going to have a positive 16, right? 2 divided by 30 is 15, and 2 divided by 2 is 1. 15 plus 1 equals 16. So if I were to check my work, let's make some space here to just check our own work. When I check my work, I'm checking to make sure that negative 2 times 16 is equal to negative 32. Well, negative 2 times 10 is negative 20, and negative 2 times 6 is negative 12. And yes, negative 20 plus negative 12 is equal to negative 32. My check works, and this is the correct answer. Okay, moving on to the bottom now. Do I need to rewrite this one for the sake of space? Yeah, let's be consistent. I will. Negative 16 is equal to 8 times some number v. Now, hopefully your mind is already solving this in your head. But let's just be certain, right? So this is saying that negative 16 is equal to 8 times some number. Well, we already know that 8 times 2 is 16, hopefully. So my guess is if this is a negative 16, it's probably a negative 2. Let's solve and prove our suspicions. So we divide both sides by 8, do the opposite of multiplication. 8v divided by 8 is 1v, no need to write the 1. And negative 16 divided by positive 8. See here. We have a negative divided by a positive, so we have to see the answer on the opposite side. It's a negative. Negative 2, just as we suspected. And of course, if I wanted to check my work and go ahead and put a 2 in that box, sorry, a negative 2, I have a negative times a positive, which is a negative, and 2 times 8 is 16, so negative 16 works, okay? So now we're going to pause the video here and give you guys a chance to practice these two on the bottom on your own. Okay, let's start tackling the next problem, shall we? So now we're going to look at the same thing again, the multiplicative property of equality with decimals. So we have 7v is equal to 17.5. And as we know, we're saying that if we repeatedly add this number, v, 7 times, we get 17.5. So let's divide that out by 7 by our coefficient, find out what that is. So we have v is equal to, and let's think about this one. Well, 7 divided into 17 goes 2 times. And then 7, what's our remainder? 3.5, so that would be 2.5 because 7 times 5 is 35. Let me show my thinking a little bit more on how I did that. I have 17.5 divided by 7. 7 goes into 17 2 times. My remainder is 14. Decimal point there. I have 35. 7 goes into 35 5 times. Okay, so that's how I can show my work there. And our final answer is 2.5. V is equal to 2.5. And we can check that by saying 7 times 2.5. So let's actually make some room to even check this out. Let's see if we can think about this. All right, so I'm checking is 7 times 2.5 equal to 17.5. That's what we're checking. Oh, let me just move this out of the way. 0.5. Okay. All right. Well, 7 times 2 is 14. And 7 times 0.5, well, that would be 35. But I have to remember my decimal point right there. And yeah, 14 plus 3.5 is equal to 7.5. So it works. All right, let's move down. We've got 12.5 is equal to V divided by 5. So that means that we've got something, some number, right? Some number divided by 5 is equal to 12.5. That's what this means, okay? V divided by 5 just means that some number, V, divided by 5 is equal to 12.5. And I'm not sure what that is off the top of my head either. You can make some estimates. I feel like it's around 60 or 70. Ooh, my guess is 65. That's my guess, right? Because 60 divided by 5 is 12, which means that 70 divided by 12 is probably like 14 or 13. 13, yeah. I don't know, we'll see. All right, so we're going to multiply both sides by 5. Let me get my pen back to undo that. And we're really, just to be thorough, we're really multiplying this by the inverse. 1/5, we're usually doing, not the inverse, the reciprocal, excuse me. 1/5 times 5 over 1. That's really the reciprocal here. We don't really write the 1 because it's not necessary, but when we get to fractions, you can see why I wanted to point that out. Because it's really the reciprocal. We just don't have to uh, write it because the denominator is 1. So we don't really have to include that. That is the reciprocal. That's what's really happening underneath it all. Okay, so multiplying both sides by 5. This is tempting to use a calculator for, but I'm still going to try my best to think it through. That didn't look like a good floating multiplication symbol. That looks better. Or maybe even just parentheses. Yeah, I'm going to do parentheses instead. Parentheses, so that looks better. Okay, so let's see. 12 times 10 is 50. 12 times 2 is 10. And I said 12 times 2. 5 times 2 is 10. 5 times 0.5, well, 5 times 5 is 25, and I have to include the decimal point. So when I add all those up, 50 plus 10 is 60, and 60 plus 2.5 is 62.5 is equal to V. And before I box that up as my final answer, I'm going to check it. I mean, it was in my ballpark, but let's be sure, right? So we say to check this, I'm doing 62.5 divided by 5, right? Because 62.5 divided by 5, we're saying V is equal to that number. So let's substitute it in and see what happens. What is 62.5 divided by 5? I clearly wrote that way too close to the top. So let's make some space here. All right, and I have 62.5 divided by 5. Well, that happens once. Oh, we're on a good track. 5 down, bring that down, bring that down. I could have taken a lot more than that out in a way, but we'll leave it at that. Bring that down. 5 goes into, we'll say 12 now, 2 times. Bring that down. 5 goes into 5. And I'm right back where I started. So my check works. V is equal to 62.5. I guess my guess was a little off, but it helped me make sure that I am in the ballpark. So what you guys are going to do now is we're going to pause the video here. I'm going to move this out of your way. And I'm going to rewrite this problem just in case you can't see it. This says 5x is equal to 12.5. We'd be solving for x. So, sorry, for all those pop-ups. So we're going to pause the video here and you're going to solve for x in both instances. Good luck. Okay, and let's continue with our next set of problems, the multiplicative property of equality with fractions. Okay, so remember I gave you that hint before that even when it looked like we were multiplying, we were just, or dividing, we were just multiplying by the reciprocal. That's what's going to happen over here. So to start off, me marker. Okay, so to start off, we have, why is this not writing? Let's pause and figure this out. Okay, let's get going. Oops. We have 30. I'm holding this pen the right way. Is equal to 6/5 times v. Okay, I'm actually going to rewrite that because I know how much space this problem is going to take me. I already know what's coming up. I didn't write that good. So we have 30 is equal to 6/5 times v. As you see, I almost wanted to do a parentheses there. Okay, so what we're going to do here is we need to get rid of this 6/5. So we're actually going to multiply by the reciprocal, 5/6. And what happens when we do that, let's sidebar that and look at that. What happens when you multiply a fraction by its reciprocal? Well, if I take 5/6 and I multiply that by 6/5, depending on how you want to look at this, to show you in layman's terms, I get 30/30, which is equal to 1, no matter how I look at it. I mean, I can simplify this if I wanted to and say 5 divides into 5 each one time and 6 divides into itself one time each, and I'd still get 1/1. But either way, whenever you multiply a fraction by its reciprocal, it equals 1, okay? So that's why we're doing that, because that gives us 1v over here. And let's see what happens over here. Well, I'm going to reduce because I'd rather not do 150 divided by 6. I could, I just don't want to. I'd like to work smarter, not harder. So, just being mindful, I'm going to say that 6 goes into itself one time, 6 goes into 30 5 times, and 5 times 5 is 25. That's a lot nicer, isn't it? Okay? And as always, we can always just check our work. So let's make some space to check the work over here. And when we check our work, I can say that 6/5 times v is equal to 25. Is that equal to 30? Well, I don't want to do 6 times 25. What is that? Like 150, I believe. I could do 150 divided by 5, but I don't really want to. So I'm going to reduce this first, okay? 5 divides into itself once, 5 divides into 25 5 times, and 6 times 5 is 30. So it works. I get exactly what I wanted to. 25 is equal to v, v is equal to 25, however you want to say it. Okay, let's look at our next example. We have 56 is equal to 8/7 times v. So same as before, I really want 1v, so I'm going to multiply by the reciprocal. And remember, whenever you multiply by the reciprocal, let's look at this on the sidebar, the reciprocal is just when you flip the fraction upside down. The reciprocal of 8/7 is 7/8. And that's going to give me 56/56, which reduces to just 1. So that's why I'm going to multiply this by 7/8 so that I get 1b. Just getting rid of my extra scrap work that I don't need. Okay, so we multiply that and we get 1v. When I multiply that on this side, I should just use parentheses. Let's just use parentheses. 7/8 I don't know what 7 times 56 is off the top of my head. I mean, I could probably figure it out. That's just like 42 plus 350, I believe. So 392. But I'd rather not do 392 divided by 8. Let's save ourselves the hassle. And instead, we're going to reduce this fraction or reduce this problem. So 8 divides into itself once. 8 divides into 56 7 times. And now I can just say 7 times 7 is 49. Whew, that's a lot nicer, isn't it? And let's check our work. So this should mean that 8 over 7 times v, which is 49, so times 49, should equal 56. And we can see here that we can reduce these. 7 divides into itself once. 7 divides into 49 7 times. And 8 times 7 is 56. It works. So this is in fact our solution. So you can pause the video here and answer the questions that follow. You're going to solve for y and solve for w. And now that you're all done, you just need to agree that you have to complete Alex assignment 1.1J next. Good luck.